Wolfenstein 2009 is a World War II first-person shooter with science fiction elements, and while I wasn't a huge fan, I overall have a positive opinion of this game. Before we go any further, I would like to state that, other than playing Wolfenstein 3D for like 5 minutes in middle school, I have no prior experience with this franchise. On with today's video. Playing this game on hard difficulty, it took me about 7 hours to beat and was definitely frustrating at times, and I almost brought the difficulty down to normal a couple times, but powered through and finished it. The story was nothing to get worked up over, your standard stop evil German scientist super weapon plan story, and most of the characters were kinda bland and unmemorable in my opinion. Graphics-wise, this game is very impressive for the time, with pretty detailed environments and a lot of destroyable objects. The soundtrack was okay, and the sound effects were overall pretty decent. Gameplay is where my issues with this title really arise, though. It's hard to describe, but I just had a hard time getting into this game. It just felt kinda off. I don't know, maybe if this was my first World War II shooter, I would have appreciated it more, but again, it just felt off. This game has 8 usable guns in the campaign, along with grenades, and most of them were useful weapons, especially the Leibchen-Faust 44 for really tough enemies and bosses, shooting a sphere of energy that dissolved weaker enemies and affected gravity in its blast range, although it's seldom usable due to a lack of ammo, and I largely stuck with the MP40, the Kar 98K for longer shots, and the MP43. The Tesla gun was disappointing though, as it just wasn't very good, and it honestly just felt a little odd having energy weapons in a World War II game. Each weapon can be given various upgrades at black market stations, such as adding sights, bigger magazines, bayonets, etc., and you use money found among the levels to purchase said enhancements. There was a lot of enemy variety, which kinda threw me off as I expected a more realistic game. I mean, sure, I knew to expect Germans in big armor suits and whatnot, but what I didn't see coming was necromancers who could give enemies energy shields, stealth assassins with invisible cloaks, female soldiers showing half their boobs while rushing you with daggers, etc. And I honestly wasn't a huge fan of the powers in the game. It just really didn't feel right. Although at times I did appreciate them, but I think a game like Singularity did a better job of adding a power system to a first-person shooter than Wolfenstein. I don't remember the exact names of the powers, but you had 4 options that could be used simultaneously, but you had a very short time limit. You had a shield, an ability to increase bullet damage and shoot through enemy shields, a ability to slow time, and one that made you move fast and let you travel through certain walls and interact with items in the Black Sun dimension. I think that's what it was called. Again, I had a hard time getting into the story. You could buy power upgrades at the black market as well, such as giving your shield the ability to bounce back bullets at the sender versus just absorbing them, or an upgrade to make time move even slower while in slow time. But, as previously mentioned, you had a time limit for powers, and it was very strict, and your power meter took forever to regenerate, so you either had to find power poles or power containers for recharging your meter. On the subject of bosses, this title did have some very challenging bosses, one of which I had to look up a tutorial on YouTube for help beating, and the final boss killed me somewhere between 50 and 75 times before I finally emerged victorious. This game technically has an open world in between levels, but I honestly didn't like it, as A, it lacked a fast travel system, B, I usually just wanted to get on with the next mission and didn't want to traverse around the map while getting stopped every 5 minutes to deal with a firefight, And C. Sometimes the compass just went berserk and led you on a wild goose chase trying to reach your next objective, and sometimes literally had me going in circles. But at least it graphically looked nice. There are also side quests you can do if you want, but I only did one. Overall, while I wasn't a huge fan of this game, I was overall left with a positive experience, and I think this title deserves a 7.1 out of 10. Is there another Wolfenstein game you think I should play? Tell me down in the comments. And as a side note, I find it interesting that Activision didn't want zombies in World at War because it was unrealistic, and they want a realistic World War II game, but they were okay with this extremely unrealistic World War II game even existing. Just something I wanted to point out. Well, that's all from me, folks. For any newcomers to my channel, I mostly play, review, and discuss zombie and horror games, with sometimes other topics like today, so feel free to check out some of my other vids if that sounds interesting. Always remember that Jesus loves you all very much. Peace.